It works, we don't when it doesn't.
By agreement of the parties, the next two 5-minute calls have been merged to a 10-minute call. Jonathan Coleman.
Mr Speaker, look, it's great to be able to take a call in this debate. What a revelation this has been this afternoon. It has been really quite fascinating to hear the views across the Parliament on foreign ownership of farmland in New Zealand. I mean, we've had the unreconstructed Marxists from the Green Party telling us about the ways that we're going to turn around New Zealand. They say it's sell assets or borrow more, but they never actually talk about selling more overseas. The focus is very myopic from the Green Party. I just had this vision there, Mr Speaker, of Russell Norman standing there with a pitchfork and medieval garb, taking us back in a very Luddite fashion to the days of peasant farming. Then, of course, we had New Zealand First, and boy, did we have some crackers from Mr O'Rourke. A few O'Rourkeisms. He said, what did he say? He told us that farm prices cause inexorable rises in farm prices. He then went on to say we're in danger of losing sovereignty over our destiny. He told us that the land is being alienated, and he finished up, we just wanted one more O'Rourkeism, well he finished up, he said, you can put the hands of assets into the hands of foreigners. So I don't know what that means, Mr Speaker, but what I can say is Mr O'Rourke doesn't seem to be in favour of a big vision for growing New Zealand, for looking outwards, for engaging in the world, for actually earning our income by raising export levels, because that's what this government is about. It's looking out to the rest of the world. It's saying, hey, our future is out there. Our future is selling things to Asia. It's about partnerships. It's actually about producing more. It's about looking strategically. It's not about having that myopic little New Zealander vision that we've heard expressed by the Greens and by New Zealand First. But I can tell you, Mr Speaker, the real doozy, it's great to have him back, is having David Cunliffe here. I think it's just fantastic that he's here to add to the melting pot of Parliament once again. He's clean shaven, ready for the leadership challenge. He's just delivered that leadership challenging speech, and you can tell by the look on the face of his colleagues over there, they are very unhappy to see that man back, because what it means trouble. It means trouble for David Shearer, it means trouble for their caucus, it means more self-hatred, more tearing each other apart, it means more distraction, more talking about issues that mean nothing to New Zealanders, it means bad news for the Labour Party, and of course, Mr Speaker, that is great news for the government, so Mr Cunliffe, welcome back. But what was really interesting about his speech, he has been a convert, Mr Speaker, to that little New Zealander view expressed by the Greens and New Zealand First. And I don't know what's happened in the last few years, but David Cunliffe has completely turned his view around, because he was part of a cabinet that over 9 years approved 665,000, I can't believe it, 665,000 hectares of land to be sold into foreign hands. And now he's saying it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea according to David Cunliffe. Well, there's a word for that, Mr Speaker. We know that word. I don't know how he can get up and say it with a straight face, because we know David Cunliffe doesn't believe that stuff. His heart is not in it. But what he does believe in is causing trouble in the Labour Party caucus. We know already he's got no mates there. In the Labour Party, well, you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your colleagues, and they are stuck with David Cunliffe. But what was even more interesting was having to listen to David Parker. Now, he was the Minister of Land Information for most of those 9 terrible years of the Labour government, who approved, yep, David Cunliffe's given me the wink. He knows we're right on the button. He's happy because his name's up in lights. But back to David Parker. David Parker was the Minister that sold hundreds and thousands, or approved the sale of hundreds of thousands of hectares of land to foreign interests. And look, while Maurice Williamson said, look, it's only 1.5% of all arable land in New Zealand, David Parker today came out so strongly, I just couldn't believe it, because when I looked at his record, well, he was saying it's a very bad idea, you know, we're never going to get ahead by selling foreign land, and he was very critical about the 7,000 hectares of land that Maurice Williamson and I approved the sale of. So I thought I'd better go and have a look at his record. And it was absolutely incredible, because David David Parker had been talking about how the forestry industry was gutted by sales of land to foreigners. I thought, well, this is pretty interesting. So I looked at this, and would you believe it, David Parker was the minister who approved the sale of 240,000 hectares of freehold forestry land to Hancock Natural Resources. 240,000. I think that must be 240,000 hectares. One transaction. Purchase price more than 1.5 billion. Now, Andrew, the guy from Taranaki, he's having a smile there because, of course, he's not a big fan of David Parker. So they'll be able to get back and do some more backbiting and bitching in the caucus room about this. So that's amazing. But that was just one transaction. So then that was in 18th October 2006. So that wasn't all. We then go on to the second one. And this is, frankly, only 5 transactions we're going through out of dozens and dozens that David Parker approved. Earnslaw One Limited, a Malaysian company, 31st March 2008, purchased 13,955 hectares of land for $117 million. It's incredible. David Parker signed that one off as well. But it gets worse. No, look, it just keeps on getting worse. He then went and approved the sale of 78,000 hectares of freehold forestry land, and as he told us, 78,000, he's very, very opposed to the gutting of the forestry industry through the sale of land to foreign interests, for $130 million. That was 29th of June 2006. Sold to AMP, Australia. So anyway, he didn't stop there. He didn't stop there because he was just warming up. Otamata Paio Station, 5,568 hectares of freehold sheep and beef station. Well, that's actually a small transaction by David Parker standards, but he flogged that off. It was actually purchased for a price of just $1. $1, would you believe it? Purchased from the Crown, signed off by David Parker. So when they're talking about getting value for money, well, I think he'd better come down and maybe take that final label call. And then there's another one here. Well, this isn't so bad, but it's just in keeping with the rest. Dairy Farms Partnership sold to Americans 589 hectares of freehold sheep and beef, $5.3 million. So really, when you look at it, I would say that Labor's approach on this stuff is about as coherent as a David Shearer statement. And if you want to know what I'm well, yeah, it is actually, because this is what David Shearer said today after caucus. When David Shearer today was asked if he's connecting with the electorate, and he said, "I do not believe I am not connecting." That's a Shearerism. So I do not believe I am not connecting. That's what David Shearer had to say today. So if you look at it, these guys have got big problems because when it comes to this issue, they have no credibility. Clayton Cosgrove knows this. He is absolutely appalled because basically someone like Clayton Cosgrove, a good centre-right, sensible person, joined the wrong party. He knows his people are on the wrong track with this, and all they can do now is laugh because they know fundamentally they have lost the debate. And so, Mr. Speaker, we were absolutely astonished that these people would want to seek an urgent debate on Crafar Farms here today, because when you look at their record, they clearly did one thing in government, and then when they were in opposition, when they couldn't get anything to grasp hold of, they tried to grasp the greasy, slippery pole of farmland sales, of overseas investment. They miscalculated. They thought they could get some traction with this. Well, I can tell you, this is yesterday's issue, but that is what goes with this opposition. They are so far behind the play. They are so far behind the play. It's quite clear David Shearer, look, if he was in charge of that caucus, he would have sat down to say today and said, look, we're not doing this bill. No one cares about this. Let's do something that the public are fired up on. They've forgotten this. We've won the debate. Those guys used to be on the winning side of the debate. They lost the election. Now they've consciously chosen the losing side of the debate. And in the end, New Zealand's going to say, why would you want to be run by a bunch of losers who always get on the wrong side of every argument? And they'll be teamed up with the Green Luddites, who will have us back with pitchforks, old straw hats, oxen ploughs, taking us back to medieval times. Quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, I reckon it would be great if we could move an extension of time and have this debate every Tuesday afternoon. Kia ora.
Mr. Speaker.
Honourable David Clayton.